welcome to the Wellness Kitchen. I think I know all of you so far, but if I don't know you, my name is Megan Rowe. I am the manager at St. Jude Wellness Center, and I'm a registered dietitian, and my background is actually culinary nutrition. So that's what I love to do, is cook food for a purpose. And today's purpose is energy because 2 weeks ago, I believe, we taught our webinar on metabolism and eat and how to eat and move and sleep and think for energy. So the topic of the webinar was lifestyle for enhancing your energy. Excuse me, I have something in my throat. So if you didn't catch that one, be sure to catch the recording, which is on the website, because it gives you some background into why we're selecting some of the foods we're selecting. Because I went into how your mitochondria works and how metabolism works and energy function. And so based on that information, we're picking the foods for today. So we have 4 recipes. They're all really simple, really easy recipes that you should be able to throw together really quick. We'll probably have a more fast class than normal today. But I picked all the ingredients for a reason. And yes, you will get the recipes as well. And as always, they're really modifiable too. So I'll kind of talk about different modifications that I like to use, but just know that, all of these recipes, you can use so many different ingredient swaps than what I'm using. So we're going to start with protein-packed tuna salad. So again, thinking back to, hi Cindy, you just jumped in. Thinking back to when we were talking about how energy works and eating for energy and all of that, some of the real key things, we're making sure you're getting a lot of color in your diet, right? Because all the plant foods really help to make sure that our immune system is functioning. And so we're not spending energy on fighting off, pathogens and things like that. We can spend our energy on producing energy. So all of today's recipes will have a lot of color, but also protein. We talked about how protein helps the muscle to utilize all its energy so that we're not, spending a lot of our energy trying to supplement the muscle. Protein keeps us full. Protein helps slow down digestion so that instead of just getting a burst of energy from carbohydrates, we are slowing that energy spurt down. So for instance, if we have just carb, we get an energy boost and we get an energy crash, and that makes us not feel energetic throughout the day. But if we have carb plus protein, now we're having kind of an energy increase that stays up for a while. So protein is so important. And omega-3s, specifically from our fats, help us to have fats that our cells can use. So when we're producing energy, we want lots of anti-inflammatory fats that make up the outside of our cells. So I'm looking at protein, I'm looking at healthy omega-3 fats, which is why I'm using fish. Fish is one of the best proteins you can incorporate into your diet. The recommendations are 2 to 3 times per week of a fatty fish. Most people aren't getting that. A lot of people don't like fish for whatever reason, but if you're kind of struggling, you like the taste of fish, you're struggling to get enough of it, I love canned fish for that reason, because it's such an easy food for you to just whip up a huge batch of. You can have it for lunches. I'm going to talk about different ideas instead of just tuna sandwiches. So this recipe that I'm going to send out to you uses tuna. Personally, I like canned salmon a bit more. So this is the Kirkland brand from Costco. They have wild canned salmon. Woohoo! High omega-3s, wild, awesome source of vitamin D3, which helps our metabolism function, and it comes in a big sleeve and it's pretty affordable. Salmon has a bit more omega-3 than tuna does. You're also not getting any mercury risk from the salmon. So that's why I like it. You could absolutely use canned tuna. If you do look for brands like Wild Catch that show that they've done mercury testing, you could also use canned sardines in this recipe. You could use canned oysters in this recipe, all really high omega-3 dishes. You could also use leftovers of a baked fish. Let's say you made baked cod or baked halibut for dinner and you had a little bit of leftover. A lot of people don't like leftover fish the next day, but if you mash it up into like a fish salad, like a tuna salad, it's a great way to use up those leftovers and therefore budget friendly too. So the recipe that I'm going to send you is actually for meal prepping purposes. It's enough to make 4 servings. I'm just having this for lunch today, so I'm not going to do the whole thing. So this is just 1 can instead of 3 that the recipe calls for. But we're going to amp up the protein, because if we look at our label on our can, protein per third of a can. Okay, or a third of a cup. So there's 2 servings in this can. So if we were to divide this can in half, per serving is 17 grams of protein, which is awesome. And so if you were to eat the whole can, now we're totally set for our protein for that meal. A lot of people, though, eat just half the can, or maybe if you're having a snack, you might not even have quite as much. And if that's your only source of protein for the meal, 17 isn't quite enough. We want to get closer to 30. So we can amp it up with the mixture. Instead of using mayonnaise, like most recipes call for a tuna salad, we're going to use cottage cheese. And I love this brand, Good Culture Cottage Cheese, because they have all the fermented probiotics, which is good for our gut, which is good for our energy. So about a half cup for the whole 3-can recipe. So I'm just gonna do like a big solid scoop. Now, if you're someone who is afraid of the curds, you don't like the curds of cottage cheese. First of all, I think you're crazy. They're delicious. Second of all, you have a couple of different options. You can blend your cottage cheese to get rid of the curds and still have the lower lactose, high protein nutrient content of cottage cheese. Or swap it out for plain Greek yogurt. It's an easy swap. You don't have to use cottage cheese. I just like cottage cheese because it's a little bit easier on the tummy and higher protein than typical yogurt. If you're going to use Greek yogurt, though, which is an awesome swap for mayonnaise, make sure you don't get flavored. You don't want vanilla yogurt in your tuna salad, okay? The other thing you're going to want, because we're not using mayonnaise, is a splash of lemon juice. That acid gives you that acidic taste that mayonnaise has, instead of it tasting like yogurt or cottage cheese in your tuna. So just a splash. You don't need much. A little bit of a splash of maybe, if we're going to say, a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. We're also going to use some either Dijon mustard or honey mustard, and this is just for flavor. There's not really a whole lot of nutrient content of mustard. Teaspoon to 2 teaspoons. Obviously, I'm eyeballing everything. You're going to want, I already pre-chopped a stalk of celery and 2 or 3 pickles. This brand is at Sprouts now, Grillo's. They have long pickles, they have little pickles, they have pickled chips. What I love is that they're in the refrigerated section and they are fermented. So a lot of pickles in jars on the shelves are heated, and so we kill off the probiotic, which is such an awesome benefit of a pickle. So instead, get the refrigerated ones. This is not the only brand out there, but that gives you, again, that probiotic effect that's going to help with our gut, that helps with our energy production. So 2 or 3 pickle chips with 1 stalk of celery that was diced up. And if you were multiplying this by 3 cans of tuna or salmon, you'd be multiplying that by more pickles and more celery. All right, I'm going to start mixing that up a little bit. Now all we're going to add is some other flavors. You could do garlic powder, you could do cayenne pepper, if you like it a little bit spicy. I'm going to do some salt. Yes, sea salt is best from an electrolyte perspective. Some pepper. And some fresh dill. And if you do not use shears for cutting your herbs, you're missing out. It makes life so much easier than chopping them on a cutting board. I learned this when I was feeding my babies, just cut everything with some kitchen shears. Go nutso with your herbs. Herbs are powerhouses. I say this with so many different topics that I teach on, because herbs have all the antioxidants and phytonutrients that help our cells work. When our cells work, our mitochondria work. And when our mitochondria work, we have energy. So if you can get 2 tablespoons a day minimum, the more the better, of any herb, cilantro, basil, dill, parsley, that's going to be so good for your energy production, for your immune system. So dill, I love in a tuna salad because it's just super fresh tasting. And when it's fresh, it gives you the psychological impact of energy. I don't know if you've ever felt that before, but things like mint and dill, it's like you smell them and you just get an energy boost. All right, guys, that's it. That's this dish. So easy. My lunch is done. Technically, I have everything I need. I could use more fiber, so I could put it on a salad. I could put it into lettuce wraps. It's a really great way to introduce some bitters into your life. So you could get like endive leaves or radicchio and put it inside of there. You could get high fiber crackers and have that maybe with some cucumber slices, and that's an easy lunch or sort of like a lunchable type of snack. One of my favorite ways of eating this is I'll get like a keto or a low carb, high fiber toast or one of those cauliflower flat rounds. Put this on top, sprinkle some Parmesan cheese and broil it. Oh my gosh, it's like a tuna melt, patty melt thing that is so, so yummy. So there's so much you can do with this outside of it just being like tuna salad on bread. All right. And nothing gives me more energy than having lunch already made for me. So if I don't eat this till tomorrow, it's done deal. I'll throw some greens in there, pack some high fiber crackers, out the door to work I go, and it's done. I don't have to think about it. Okay, recipe number one done. I'm gonna grab a Tupperware lid because it sort of does smell like canned fish. I don't want to smell that while I'm teaching. All right. If there was any other cool ideas I had written down for you guys. Oh, stuffed tomatoes. You could cut out the inside of like a really big tomato, stuff that with the tuna salad. And again, you could top that with Parmesan cheese and broil. You can also pack yourself some mini bell peppers and use those as dippers. So just some fun ways to eat your tuna or your salmon salad. All right, next up, we're gonna do some chopping. Get things out of the way here. We are going to make a farmer's market salad. Do this. So, farmer's market salad is awesome because of how much variety you can do. It's literally whatever fruit and whatever vegetables you can find at the farmer's market. So ideally, you're actually going to a farmer's market. So that means you're out in the sun, you're interacting with other people, you're getting local foods, energy, 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 right? Just the impact of the going and shopping for this dish is an energizing type of recipe. So you have to kind of think through that whole cycle, right? Of like, are you being drained or being energized simply by the process of eating this? So I went to farmer's market and I found myself some little cucumbers. So these tiny little cucumbers are so great, especially if you're someone who tends to have a lot of food waste. Get tiny things, get tiny bell peppers and tiny cucumbers. Cucumbers are an especially energizing vegetable because they're so packed with water. So celery, like we had in our tuna salad, cucumbers here. Anytime you have a really high water content vegetable, you're getting fiber along with water, which not only supplements your whole gut, but it also hydrates your cells. And when your cells are hydrated, they can produce that whole ATP chain we talked about in that last webinar 2 weeks ago, where your cells can make energy because they're full of water, they're well hydrated, they can do their job. Think of how you feel when you're dehydrated, right? You're just like, oh, you're kind of sluggish, your brain's not really thinking right, and suddenly you get that big old glug of water, or maybe you had some sort of electrolyte drink, or your coffee, for instance, in the morning, and it does something different. You feel better simply by that liquid that you just drank. Your cells are the same way. All right, so I am making this actually for tonight for our dinner. It's going to be a side dish alongside some flank steak. So I'm putting them here in my Tupperware, but I would usually put it into like on a pretty dish. But I kind of love showing you guys how you can pre-make recipes too. So whenever you're making a recipe that has vegetables with water content and fruit along with it, you want to do the dressing right before you eat. So I'm not going to dress this because otherwise it's all going to get kind of mushy and soggy. So that's the only caveat to doing any salad ahead of time that includes fruit or a watery vegetable is just don't toss it with the dressing. Versus if you're doing a salad like with kale, you could totally toss that. All right, this is a peach. Your recipe calls for nectarine, but the nectarines were kind of mushy when I went to the market. So these actually are from Farmer's Market in Yorba Linda this Saturday. They have the greatest little farmer's market, but their peaches looked way better than their nectarines, so I'm using those. I've also done this recipe with blackberries, and it's so good with blackberries too. So that's another easy swap. Now, you could put these into slices if you want to make it super pretty. So what I'm going to do is I'm just chopping up one peach into little pieces that I'm going to toss together with the cucumber. And right before we eat, I have one more peach in the fridge. I'm going to cut those into pretty slices to kind of plate the plate. It's amazing what just a little visual can do to make it seem fancy and more appetizing. So we're literally going to have some grilled flank steak with this dish, and I'm going to put a couple slices of peach along the side, and it's going to be a beautiful dish that's kind of checking off all my boxes of fiber and phytonutrients and protein. So for right now, I'm cutting them tiny for bite size. But again, appearance wise, it's a little prettier in slices. What we're looking at from an energy perspective with fruit is fruit gives us sugar. Fruit gives us literally energy, gives us glucose. So anytime we eat fruit, we're gonna get an energy boost from it. So the key thing with that is don't eat them alone. That should be a theme that you hear across all my classes is carbs, aka fruit, should always be eaten alongside protein and or a little bit of fat to slow down that blood sugar spike so that you don't get an immediate rush of energy and then a following crash, 30 minutes later where then you have to eat more sugar or you have to have another coffee drink. So nectarines and peaches are delicious summer fruits, but they are a higher sugar, higher glycemic fruit. So I'm partnering it with some fiber here with my cucumbers, but I'm going to show you also what else I'm going to partner it with. I'm also going to partner it with my herbs. I have some basil and some mint here that smell fantastic. This is another thing where I'm only going to put about half of my amount now, and I'm going to put the rest in later so they don't get kind of mushy and soggy. Kind of top it off with some more herbs right before I serve it. So mint and basil, so super good. And now, since I'm not serving this until later tonight, I'm going to give it right in my eye, a little squeeze of citrus. So this could be lemon or lime juice. But what this does is it helps keep the color and the freshness of those fruits and vegetables since they're going to sit here for a couple of hours before I serve them. Now, the other thing I'm going to do before I serve, I'm going to show you the dressing in a second. I'm also going to put goat cheese on top. So this is just a nice plain goat cheese, and I'm going to crumble that on top. It's creating an amazing flavor profile. It's beautiful that way, but now we're getting a little bit of protein, but also fat to slow down the absorption of that really high sugar peach that we just chopped into our salad. Partner this on the side of a protein, be it chicken, flank steak, like we're going to have fish. It could be a tofu block. It could be a bean burger. Choose your protein source. Now we have fat, we have protein on the side, and this high glycemic peach is no longer a concern for me. I know that I'm going to get some energy from it, and that energy is going to level off. I'm going to have some energy for a good while before I need energy again. So goat cheese crumbled on top, but that's something you also don't want to do until right before because it kind of can get mushed into the salad. And I'm going to make my dressing, really easy dressing of olive oil. So the ratio of dressing is very personal. Most recipes will call for like a 1-to-2 ratio of 1 of vinegar, 2 of olive oil. Personally, I like more vinegar taste. So I usually swap that where it's 1-to-2 of 1 part oil to 2 parts vinegar. You do you. If you want to do 1-to-1, that's fine. So this is extra virgin olive oil. Kind of a bit of an olive oil snob. So I have all these fancy olive oil flavors. This one's called Sweet Mission. My aunt gets it from me from her farmer's market up north, but I love it when I have kind of a sweet salad. You could use regular olive oil too. But if you're someone who enjoys the flavor profiles of olive oil, you could find, smoky ones and spicy ones and sweeter ones for things like dressings. You're going to add a little bit of lemon juice, just a splash, because I already put lime juice on my fruit and vegetables. Red wine vinegar. Now, the recipe itself just calls your only acid is a splash of lemon juice and the red wine vinegar. I personally I personally like to do a little bit of a sweet balsamic instead of sugar. So our recipe calls for 2 tablespoons olive oil, 3 tablespoons red wine vinegar, a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, and a teaspoon of honey. So instead of honey, I have a balsamic reduction. So it's already a sweeter balsamic. And I just like that better because it's a little bit more of that vinegar taste with the sweetness. If you don't have a balsamic reduction at home, just use a teaspoon of honey. Or date syrup or allulose, whatever sweetener you have. I don't always put sweeteners into my dressings, but when I'm doing a fruit salad, I usually do. And then just a little, like half teaspoon of Dijon mustard, salt, pepper. And I love making my dressings in jars like this because all I have to do now, make sure it's on really tight. Done. Dressing done. So when I'm ready to eat tonight, I'm going to toss this with my dressing. I'm going to add my goat cheese and a little bit more mint and basil on top. Done. You could also add pistachios or slivered almonds on top if you want a little bit of a crunch. And again, swap it out for any local fruits and vegetables you have. But I just find this is the sweet and the savory is such a nice combination in the summer because all you have to do is grill up some protein and it's done. All right. So there's our energy boost salad. Stop. Okay. Moving on. I told you it was going to be a quick class today. Everything is just so easy. All right. Next, we're going to do an energy drink because I couldn't have an energy class without an energy drink. But it's not Red Bull or anything like that. All right. First and foremost, buy yourself a fancy glass. Invest in a fancy glass. I can't tell you how much just it's totally like a psychological thing, energy I get from drinking out of these silly things that have like a glass straw and a little wooden lid, and it's so cute. It came in a 4-pack on Amazon. I drink my iced coffee in them, and whenever I make myself little fun teas, just because they're cute, I feel like an Instagram, influencer or something. So do that too. Again, the process. What are you serving it in? What's it look like? Who are you eating with? Are you eating outside? That all brings energy too. I know we're talking about true energy from a cellular level, but when we're talking food, the whole process is part of it. Okay, so what I have in here already is pomegranate juice. I have about 1/4 cup of pomegranate juice in here. So just store-bought pomegranate juice. I'm not home squeezing pomegranates or anything. But do make sure it's just pomegranate and not pomegranate and cane sugar or pomegranate and another type of fruit juice, because a lot of times they'll cut pomegranate juice with other things to cut down on cost, because pomegranate juice actually is a more expensive juice. So do make sure it's just pom. You can also swap this out for tart cherry juice. The reason we're being particular about our juices is because we actually are getting a true energizing effect from the juice itself. Yes, there's sugar in it. Anytime you have juice, you're going to get a blood sugar spike from it, whether it's orange juice, apple juice, whatever. But pomegranate and tart cherry do a very special thing because they have something called nitric oxide. And what that does is it's a vasodilator. So it literally helps our blood flow faster and get where it needs to go. And for this reason, athletes take tart cherry or pomegranate supplements, like they call it goo, right before an athletic event because it truly does give you an energetic boost along the lines of caffeine. So very, very cool. Be careful with portion because it does have the sugar impact too. So if you're drinking, cups of pomegranate juice all day, you're also getting quite the blood sugar spike. So you only need about 1/4 cup of the juice itself, but you're getting a true vasodilation effect from pomegranate juice. I like pomegranate a little better than tart cherry from a flavor, that's my personality. I like it better, but you could do tart cherry as well. We're also going to squeeze in half a lime. Anytime we get citrus, we're getting antioxidants and polyphenols that help everything would just flow faster in our immune system. Plus, it just tastes good and smells fresh. And you're getting vitamin C, which helps our immune system as well. So the recipe calls for a tablespoon of lime juice. That's about a half of a lime, give or take. So I just squeezed a half a lime in there. I'm also going to give myself a little bit of electrolytes to make sure, yes, I'm drinking liquid, so I'm getting hydrated. But sometimes if we're having liquid without electrolytes, especially if you find that you're going to the bathroom all the time, you might not be hydrating your cells very well. So you might want to add some electrolytes to it. So I have this brand, LMNT. I don't know if they call it LMNT or Element. There's lots of brands out there now. Cure is another one I like. Just watch that it's not sweetened. A lot of electrolyte packets are sweetened. So this is a powder. You don't need to use the whole thing either. So something like this where it's already full of good juice, and we're going to put some tea in here too. I just put like a good sprinkle. So this packet, this is just their plain one. They have flavored ones too that I love, but this is just plain electrolytes. They're raw. This packet right here, I've used, I don't know, 3 or 4 times because I just kind of use little sprinkles in things, and I have it just clipped. I have them clipped on my refrigerator. So you can see all my little different flavors of electrolyte packets that I use little bits here and there. So you also don't have to use a whole pack. It's a strong flavor, unless you're outside sweating, something like that, where you might want to totally rehydrate. So just kind of shake that up in there. It's going to give it a little bit of a salty bite to it. Keep that. And then I made some iced green tea last night. This is literally just, I have whole green tea leaves just in my pantry. So I poured hot water over a bag of them, let it steep for about 10 minutes, and then poured it into a jar once it was cool and refrigerated it. So this is just iced green tea, no sweetener, no nothing. And I'm going to add that in. Now I have a little bonus for maybe tomorrow or later today. And I have this sparkling Spindrift. You could use regular sparkling water, which I usually do, but my husband happened to open this earlier and he drank most of it and just left part of it on the counter. Are you one of those people, all of you listening? I always find partial cans of sparkling sodas or sparkling waters. Anyway, so I figured I'd just use up the rest of it. But this is Spindrift, which just uses sparkling water and juice. Again, usually I would just use regular sparkling water. Just to top it off, to give it some bubbles. You don't have to do that part of it, but I kind of like the fizz. It makes it a bit more like an effervescent energy drink. Just for fun, because I have mint and we love getting our herbs in. Yes, you are infusing some of the polyphenols from the mint into your drink. And it's cute. Stir it up. So now I've got electrolytes hydrating my cells. I've got green tea, which actually has caffeine in it. And for those of us who are very sensitive to caffeine, the type of caffeine that's in tea is a different structure than the type of caffeine in coffee, which is why you get a little bit of an energy, but you don't ever get the jitters. So tea, green tea specifically, and black tea both have caffeine that can be really energizing without the jittery spike of energy that you might get from a coffee. Plus, we're getting nitric oxide from our juice to give us vasodilation. So this is seriously an energy drink right here, okay? It's delicious. What was I gonna say? Plus a little bit of sugar from the juice. So you're also getting that blood sugar spike too. So if you're someone who tracks your blood sugar, if this drink does give you a bit of a spike, either cut the juice or have it again alongside a meal where you're having protein and fat, and then you shouldn't have any spike at all. So, and you can add ice to that. Awesome, awesome energy drink. If you find that it's too tart for your liking, you could always add like an actual flavored electrolyte pack, because those have stevia in them. So you could add like a lemon electrolyte pack and that would sweeten it up a little bit, or just add, like a teaspoon of date syrup or honey or something like that. That would be great too. Okay, so we have one more dish to make. We're gonna make dessert as usual. You can't have a cooking class without dessert, in my opinion. This dish has 3 ingredients: strawberries, Greek yogurt, melted dark chocolate. Strawberries are a fruit. Therefore, again, it's a carbohydrate, so we're getting sugar. Are you seeing a theme? In the summer, I love using fruit as my sugar, fruit as my energy boost. It tastes good, it's sweet, it's giving me a boost. But again, what do we need to partner it with so that we don't get a spike from our strawberries? We get a nice even hill protein. So we're going to use plain Greek yogurt because we're getting plenty of sugar from our strawberries and we're going to get some sweetness from our chocolate. So protein and a little bit of fat because this one is a 2%. That's going to cut my spike here. And then I have melted dark chocolate chips. Chocolate does give an energy boost, okay? There's lots of different types of polyphenols in chocolate that help with our immune system, but it also has a bit of the nitric oxide effect where it's giving us a bit of vasodilation. So we don't want to go too crazy on the chocolate, but cacao actually does have an energizing effect, which is interesting because it also has magnesium, so it can also have a relaxing effect depending on where you are in your circadian rhythm that day. Whoa, so cool. All right, we're going to freeze it. We're going to make an ice cream-ish bark with this because anything frozen is also just fun in the summer and gives us an energy boost. So I already sliced up my strawberries and I have a piece of parchment paper here on a freezer-friendly plate. And there's no rhyme or reason. I just want my strawberries to overlap and kind of touch each other. So that way when I break up the bark, it breaks into nice pieces. So again, you don't have to be super careful here. Also, you can use any fruit you want. This recipe does great with blueberries. I've done that before. Raspberries are super good. Bananas. All right, so I'm gonna get my unsweetened, totally plain yogurt. If after you make this, you're like, that would have been better with a little bit of sweetness, add it. Take a little bit of plain Greek yogurt and mix in some date syrup and add it in. It's totally okay if your flavor profile is different than mine and you need to mix and match and add some sweetness. So this is where things get a little bit messy. I've done this with a spatula. I've done it with a spoon. I can't find a way to not make this messy. So just know you're going to get yogurt on your hands. You're going to mess up the beautiful design you just made out of your strawberries. It's fine. It's supposed to be bark in the end. We're going to break it all up when it's all done anyway, so it doesn't really matter. You could also do flavor additions here. You could add cinnamon to your yogurt or cardamom or nutmeg and just kind of spread the yogurt out as much as you can. Trying to keep the strawberries somewhat touching each other. So just so you can see that a little bit better, it's messy. It's not perfect. Strawberries show through. It's okay. You just kind of want to create a bit of a layer. Now I had dark chocolate chips that I had melted. They've sort of hardened a little bit, but that's okay. Pro tip, if you have leftover chocolate chips or chocolate chunks that you didn't quite use enough, melt them and then pour them into little discs on parchment paper and freeze them. So I just happened to have 2 discs of melted dark chocolate that were in my freezer. So all I had to do was remelt it. It was just made it easier than opening up a whole new bag of chocolate. And you can pipe it and drizzle it or just make spots or zigzag or just spread it like I'm gonna do over the top. And I love this as a recipe dish because it's frozen. I feel like there's less pressure to eat the whole thing. And then you just have a really yummy dessert snack waiting for you in the freezer at all times for when you just need that bite, after dinner. I really like having those things on hand where I don't have to open up a whole new package or do any prep, and I can just have a small amount if I want, or I can have a larger amount. But it's nice to have those foods at the ready. And again, it's not so draining on us to have to make a decision about what I'm going to eat when I'm having a sweet craving. I can just find it in my freezer. All right, and that's literally it. And I'm going to pop it in my freezer for at least 2 hours, as long as you want, overnight. Just realized I had my window open. You guys are hearing birds and stuff out there. And through the magic of Zoom, I already had some frozen for you guys. I made this last night. Um, because it's just so easy, and I wanted you to see. Ta-da! Bark. So now you gotta use your muscles. This is also your resistance training for the day. There we go. And you just break it up into pieces. Doesn't matter how big they are or small they are. It's like however you want them to be. Mm. Oh, that's a big piece of strawberry. That's why. So keep that in mind too. If you want them into tiny pieces, you got to make tiny strawberries. I don't think I'm going to be able to break that piece. Okay, so now I have these yummy little kind of like ice cream treats that are gonna give me an energy boost, a sugar boost. They're gonna meet my taste needs for having something sweet, but they've got protein and fat that are gonna help moderate so I don't get a big like spike, a sugar spike from this. These store great in a Ziploc bag in your freezer for a while. So, have 2 or 3 of them and then pop them back in your freezer, ready to go. So we've got lots of bark now in my household. You could do white chocolate if you wanted to. There's not as much health benefit from there, but you could mess with the flavors here, like I said, instead of just dark chocolate or milk chocolate if that's your thing. So in what is that? In like a little over half an hour, we made dessert that we have plenty of. We made an energy drink to go with our lunch today. We've got a side salad to go with dinner tonight that all I have to do is put a few toppings on, and lunch is at the ready. And that was very, very little time. We got an energy boost from it, and these are all energy bursting foods, if you will. So, what questions do you have for me? We have plenty of time for them. Pop them in the chat. Oh, no questions. Does anyone have questions? I'll wait for you. See if there's anything to show you. I'll just show you some of these brands because I get a lot of questions usually in email later. Grillo's is the pickle. I got those at Sprouts. Good Culture is the cottage cheese. I got everything at Sprouts this time just because I was there, but Good Culture is at a lot of stores actually. What else? Here's Spindrift, if you're not familiar with it. It's just juice, like a splash of juice and sparkling water. And here's the yogurt I used. Bage. Here's an up close and personal with our strawberry bark. Cute, huh? My kids love these. All right, everyone. I am not seeing questions. So I will let you all go and have an amazing rest of your afternoon. And oh, there is a question. I use lactose-free Chobani yogurt for my husband. It's only in vanilla. Will it work okay? Yes, absolutely. I'm surprised they don't have the lactose-free in regular and unflavored. I'm actually surprised about that. But if that's maybe it's just your store that doesn't carry it, double check the sugar on it. I'm assuming it's a little bit on the high side, but even still, it is high in protein. And for a dessert option, that's still going to be a low sugar dessert option. If you can find a different type of lactose-free plain, that might be a even better option, but start there. You're welcome. All right. Yeah. If anybody didn't actually register, if you popped in through the link and you didn't put your email into the registration, then please put it into the comment box. And so if you want me to email you the recipes, otherwise the recipes are posted in the recording caption as well. All right, everyone. Cool. Well, have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the recipes, enjoy the weather. And I will see you, let's see, next session we have is in 2 or 3 weeks. And I should probably have remembered what our topic was. I believe we're talking about metabolism. So we're kind of taking the concept of energy and applying it to how our body processes energy and kind of talking about metabolic function, metabolic syndrome. I think that's our next topic for June. And then also in June, we will have a three-part series on proactive aging, which will be a fun one that people can participate in. That one will have a cost to it. And if anyone is local, if anyone is in Brea, I'll be at Brea Community Center this Saturday at their health fair teaching about fasting. My slot's at 9:30 in the morning, so you can check me out there too. Come say hi and have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.